Welcome back, everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Point After Podcast. This is episode 3, week 2 of covering the NFL. Today we are going to be recapping week 3 in the NFL, getting into week 4. Talking about, we got Sunday Night Football recap, Monday Night Football, the Bears, the Cardinals, the Eagles. Touch on the Bills, touch on Russell Wilson, our MVP candidates this far into the season, and then, of course, we'll make our week 4 predictions. If you're here for fantasy, we just put out a video yesterday regarding all of our fantasy picks for this week, who to start, who to sit, who we like, who we don't, things of that nature. So if you're looking for that video and don't want to watch this full podcast, you can go on our channel and find that one. Just like I said, we uploaded it yesterday. But nonetheless, I am one of the hosts for this. I'm Gage, joined by my best friend Matthew. You can see in the picture on the screen to my left. He's the one on your right. I'm on the left. Matt, how you doing?
Doing great, man. Another episode of TPA podcast talking about the NFL. I always look forward to it. A lot of preparation goes into it, and the more this goes on, yeah, let's get to it.
Did you cut out?
Yeah, my dad tried to call me. Hold 1 second.
Okay.
Anyways, I was saying, I was put a lot of preparation into it, and as the weeks go on, I learn better knowledge of how to take notes and stuff that I hope help you guys out. But another episode of NFL. Let's get right into it.
Yeah, like you said, a lot of preparation goes into this, and I think as the more preparation we do, especially throughout this season, we'll have new topics to talk about, how to read more in depth into the stats and trends and analytics of everything, opposed to just the X's and O's and the rosters. So if there's anything you want to see from us specifically, you can drop that in the comments, and we'll be sure to cover it in the best capacity that we can. So we will get into recapping week 3. Lots of interesting games. I think our picks last week were pretty much on par. I think besides the tie, I went, I believe, 11-5 in my picks. That puts me at like 35-12 on the season, somewhere in there. Do you know how you've stacked up to this point?
I do not, but I can add that up, and I'll let you guys know later in the show.
Okay, yeah, we can get back to that. At the end of the season, at the end of the podcast, when we go to our week 4 picks, gonna pull up my picks real quick so I have them when we start talking about them, and we'll get into it. So to start off, we're gonna cover the Packers and Saints on Sunday Night Football. The outcome was kind of as expected, especially with the way that the Packers have been playing. Aaron Rodgers have been playing, who is recently single. If you didn't know that, him and Danica Patrick broke up, and I think that may be what he's alluding to when he says like he's in a new state of mind and loving life and everything. Oh yeah, absolutely. He's playing out of his mind, and on the opposite side you have the Saints, who are doing the opposite. Breeze is struggling a little bit. Kamara is balling. He's putting up numbers as good as Aaron Rodgers from a running back standpoint. And the Saints D, I had a lot of faith in them going into the season, but they're struggling too. What did you see on Sunday night?
Well, both teams missing, arguably outside of the quarterbacks, they're missing their 2-star offensive players in Devontae Adams and Michael Thomas. But it didn't seem to slow the Packers down. Aaron Rodgers did his thing, 283 yards, 3 touchdowns, and Breeze as well, 3 touchdowns. And, it came down to the Taysom Hill turnover. Only a 7-point victory. And, Packers outscoring the Saints 10-3 in the fourth quarter definitely is what did it. But one thing I want to touch on here is, no Devontae Adams, but Alan Lazard, 6 receptions, 146 yards, and 1 touchdown. Who did you see this coming? I'm pretty sure this guy's a top 15 fantasy guy right now, top 20 at least.
Yeah, the name is one of those guys that you hear and you kind of don't know enough about. You feel
Yep.
like he's a 2 or 3 receiver for the Packers, but then again, he's one of those guys that are just very young and you don't really know a lot about him. But last Sunday against the Saints, he showed you what he's about. I want to say in Week 1 he dropped a wide open touchdown. I can't remember if it was him or Scantlin, um, but one of them had a very bad drop in Week 1. But yeah, I mean Lazard is starting to become one of Rodgers' favorite target, and he may continue to be his favorite target even when Devontae Adams comes back, because when you have that caliber of a player on the field, he's going to get some attention drawn to him.
Yep.
So, but yeah, so the Packers are averaging 41 points per game. Aaron Rodgers is playing out of his mind. And yeah, I mean, you touched on the Taysom Hill turnover. That was the only turnover of the game, and it ended up being a
Yep.
one-score game. So that just goes to show you how big turnovers truly are in a game like this, and how every possession counts.
Yeah, and even you just said the one turnover for the game. Even the time of possession was close. Packers 31 minutes and Saints 28. That's not much difference. And total yardage, yeah, this shows right here that the Saints even had more total yards in the game than the Packers did. But that's not what matters. All that matters is how many points you put on the board. So definitely a
Right.
game I enjoyed watching.
Yeah, and when you do a QB versus QB comparison, Breeze actually had the better stat line.
Yeah,
He had 5 more yards than A-Rod. They both threw for 280. Aaron Rodgers threw for 283, Breeze at 288, and then they both threw for 3 touchdowns, and neither one of them turned the ball over. So when you look at it that way, you know, Breeze had the better stat line. Of course, Kamara had that long 60, 70-yard touchdown, whatever it was. But at the same time, A-Rod hit a few bombs deep as well. But yeah, Kamara is on the season. He has 19 touches for 190 yards, and that's, I mean, you give him the ball and he's getting 10 yards a play. And I want to say I saw where he had 275 receiving yards maybe.
yeah.
Um,
He's number 5 in the league right now in receiving.
and what's crazy is it's 274 yards after catch. He has one catch for 1 yard, and the rest are yards after catch.
Yeah.
That's what's crazy to me.
Another thing to look at too is I'm actually looking at right now from a fantasy standpoint. He is leading all running backs by 30 plus points total on the season. Aaron Jones being in second with 79, and Kamara has 106 total points right now. Is this safe to say, without Michael Thomas, he's kind of having a Christian McCaffrey top season in terms of value and touches, what you can do receiving and rushing?
I would say so, and I'd also say it goes back to where last year he was hurt for majority of the year. He said that in the offseason that he was at like 70% most of the season, and now he's back into full swing, so he's looking to prove a point. I want to say his contract year is this year and next year, so at the same time he's looking to get a decent chunk of change, maybe some Patrick Mahomes range, for
Yeah,
the running backs at least.
he's wanting it. You can tell.
Yeah, absolutely, and you can tell in his play that he's expecting just that. Um,
Is it safe to say that hopefully, because I have Kamara in 2 fantasy leagues, does this continue even when Michael Thomas comes back, which will hopefully be this week?
I don't know, man. I would like to think so, um, but at the same time, you don't know, because Michael Thomas he's that guy. He's a top 3 receiver in the league for a reason.
Yeah,
Um, I would expect Kamara's numbers to drop a little bit, um, but
especially
I would say,
receptions.
yeah, he's definitely not going to get as many receptions. But I would like to say his yards. I'll say his yards per touch will probably stay the same.
Yeah,
I
I
think,
see him staying number 1 in fantasy, probably top 3 for the remainder of the year,
yeah,
from a running back standpoint.
yeah, I think you'll see his total yards go down, total yards per game. But when you look at the average of every time he touches the ball, I think that's going to stay the same as to what it is now, for the most part at least. But
Yep.
getting back on Michael Thomas coming back and the Breeze, quote unquote, not being able to throw the ball downfield, I did some digging into that. And, obviously the Saints are 0-2 without Michael Thomas in 2020. But on top of that, Michael Thomas last year had 7 games where his average target was 10 plus yards. So that
Yeah,
means seven over almost half the season. Each game he played, he's running 10-yard routes majority of the time. Um,
Yep.
Majority of the time that he gets targeted, he's at 10 yards. So, and that was last year. In 2018, he had 7 as well, and in 2016, he had 8. So that's half the season in every game. He is that deep threat for Drew Brees.
Yeah.
Um, so everyone's saying that Drew Brees can't throw the ball deep. Well, maybe it's just because he don't have a deep threat anymore. You have Michael Thomas you can send deep. That's going to open up all the underneath stuff for Drew Brees. But when you don't have that deep threat, you don't have anyone else to throw deep to, especially somebody that you trust as much as him to come down with the football.
Yeah, and one of the things that stuck out to me too was last year, Thomas played the whole season and he was averaging 107 yards per game. Now, you think, and in recent years, let's see, 2018 it was 87, and 16, 17 it was roughly 75 yards a game. But 107 yards added to an offense per game just from one individual. I mean, if you're missing that guy, you're probably going to be missing some wins. And, the record shows 0-2, like you just said, without Michael Thomas. So hopefully he comes back this week. I still think we see the Saints, turn the season around. One of the greatest quarterbacks ever. So I think Michael Thomas is going to be a big plus coming back for the Saints.
Yeah, I would like to see him get back on the field this week against Detroit, but I'm looking at the rest of their schedule. They go next week. They have Monday Night Football versus the Chargers, and then they have the Panthers. Sorry, they have a bye week. Then they have the Panthers, and then they have the Bears. So I think you're looking at get past the Lions. Probably going to pick up a win against the Chargers, whether Michael Thomas plays or not. Same thing when you play against Carolina in a divisional matchup. But before you even play Carolina, you have that bye week. So I think that's
Yeah.
going to be a big factor in the Saints getting back on track is just having a bye week in that'd be week 6, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So you have that bye week to get everything, to figure out what's going wrong. You have Michael Thomas can get 100% healthy if he was to come back too early or something.
Yeah, and I don't see him playing, his normal. I'm pretty sure he probably plays just about every single play when healthy. So this week, even if he comes back, I'm sure he'll play 60, 70% of the game. But the bye week's going to help. I think after the bye week, you're going to see the normal Michael Thomas and Drew Brees duo come back. So it's safe to say that they're definitely hurting without him.
Yeah, I think something that's going to be overlooked by a lot of people is the fact that week 6 bye week plays such a bigger role than anyone thinks about. Because imagine if that bye week was in week 10 or week 11 or 12 when you're over halfway through the season and your record's sitting at 5-5
Yeah,
or 4-6 or something like that, just because you haven't had that bye week to try to get things back in order and figure out what's going wrong and fix it. Because right after the bye week, you play Chicago, who's currently undefeated. You play the Buccaneers, who are starting to pick things up. And you play the 49ers, who, even though they have a lot of injuries, they're still the defending NFC champions. So
yeah,
after the bye week, you're right back into a gauntlet. So I think that bye week is going to be very key in determining the rest of the season for New Orleans.
I agree. Man. I will say, me and you both chose the Ravens, but I'm not surprised at the game the Chiefs had. I didn't expect Patrick Mahomes to have that great of a passing game. Only incompleted 11 passes, 4 touchdowns, almost 400 yards passing. What a game. I think he threw himself right back into the MVP race. Not that he was not already in it, but I think this game against the number one defense in the league, he definitely proved his point.
Yeah, I think he showed you exactly why he is the MVP, the Super Bowl MVP. I think he proved his worth for the $500 million contract he got. Um,
Yeah.
So if you look at their stat lines for Monday night, Mahomes threw for 385 yards and 4 touchdowns. He threw for 4 times more yardage and 4 times more touchdowns than Lamar did in one game.
Yeah.
Um,
And we're sitting here talking about the offense. We can't take anything away from the Chiefs defense, who only held Lamar, less than 100 yards passing, and I'm pretty sure he didn't even break 100 yards rushing. So let's not take anything away from the Chiefs defense this past Monday. They definitely showed out.
Yeah, absolutely. You look at the Chiefs' offense, just to talk about how well the Chiefs' defense played. The Chiefs' offense had double the first downs and double the yards. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's just a testament to the Chiefs' defense as well as it is the offense.
Yeah, and another key thing is Chiefs ran 20 more plays than the Ravens.
Yeah, so you look up, but to get back on the Kansas City's offense, Baltimore's defense was allowing 11 points per game to teams not named the Chiefs. So, I mean, there's a reason we picked Baltimore to win that game, and I don't think it was trying to take anything away from the Chiefs. It was more of a testament to the Baltimore defense and how well we thought they would perform.
And I did not realize either that until the other night, you were talking about it. Patrick Mahomes is 3-0 versus Lamar Jackson. So that's definitely not something to let go or let slide by either. And you and I both, we can agree that our good buddy, Cade Powell, he's definitely happy about this one.
Oh, yeah, him and Putter both. Cade, if you're watching this, you got to show your dad that we're talking to both of you. We'll get you on the show soon. Yeah, Cade wants to come on and be a guest speaker. I told him we'd get him on
awesome.
within the next month for sure. But yeah, so that'll be a fun one. Maybe we can have a whole episode dedicated to the Kansas City Chiefs and see what Cade has to say.
They definitely deserve it.
Hey, maybe we get him on when Big Ten football starts back and we get some Nebraska Cornhusker football in there too.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, so Monday Night Football, that was when we recorded the college podcast, so we missed pretty much the first half. But
yeah,
it was a fun game to watch. What we did catch of it,
I remember right after we finished the podcast, I told you, I was like, "Hey, the Chiefs are up like 20 right now, and it's the first half."
Yeah, I think you asked me. You were like, have you looked at the game? I was like, last I saw it was like 6-3, and then Chiefs go up 2 or 3 scores, and a lot can happen when you're not paying attention. But speaking of being down 2 or 3 scores, and somehow coming back, let's get into old Big Dick Nick, the air raid quarterback Nick Foles, and replacing Mitch Trubisky and leading the Bears to 3-0 and a victory over the Atlanta Falcons. As you can see, this is the exact reason why Matthew did not change his picture for this week and went with the Crying Jordan Falcons logo yet again.
Heartbreaking, man. It's making me sick.
Yeah, I saw a girl on TikTok. She was like, "We're auctioning off the Falcons to Birmingham. Y'all can have them because they're pissing us off." So,
hey, it'd be closer to home for us.
Yeah, it would be better. I wouldn't be opposed to getting a Birmingham team, but
yeah, we could go watch some more leads.
Exactly. Spend less money doing it too, but yeah. So we'll get into the Bears. Nick Foles earned the starting position. I saw where Jordan Rodgers did a breakdown of a play that the Bears ran, and Trubisky ran the play and executed it terribly. And then Nick Foles ran the same play, same formation, play, everything, and it hit for big yards. And I don't know if that was they gave the same look on defense or a different look or whatever. Or maybe Nick Foles saw where Trubisky messed it up and was able to go back and fix it. But, at the same time, Nick Foles has performed everywhere he's been. When he was in Jacksonville, he would have performed had he not got hurt. I don't think it really matters to Nick Foles who he's around. I think he has a really high understanding of the game, and that, to me, that goes back to the way he was brought up through college. To play in the air raid, you have to have a very high football IQ. You have to understand things because, like we touched on the other day, the air raid's not a lot of concepts. It's not a lot of X's and O's. It's the same thing over and over in different variations. And
Yeah.
I think that's what's helped Nick out a lot is he is a big student of the game and understands it. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see Nick Foles play in Chicago.
Yeah, and talking about the air raid, 73% of his passes last Sunday came 10 plus yards. I think he likes that medium 10 to 20 yards, 10 to 20 yard throw. Um, but going back to Trubisky, does he lose the job forever? Is that something we're looking at? Because we always talk about he overthrows some potential touchdown passes. There wasn't enough big plays. Stuff like that. But is he definitely somebody to just go ahead and cancel out for Nick Foles going forward? And if you do you look at trading him or do you see if he stays for a backup? Because I definitely think Trubisky could start somewhere. I mean, he's proved it. He led the team to 2-0 to start the season, and then last year was a top 10 quarterback in fantasy through 8 weeks. So, do you cancel it out now? Is it time? Is it Nick Foles' time going forward? What do you think?
To me, I don't think you pull the plug on Trubisky yet. What I
I
would
agree.
do, you mentioned he led them to 2-0, 3-0, depending on how you want to look at it. But their average margin of victory is only 4 points the first 2 weeks, where they beat a terrible Giants team. They beat a mediocre Lions team.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think Trubisky's playing terrible. Um, but at the same time, I don't really feel like he's a Super Bowl caliber quarterback. I don't think he's a guy that's going to lead the Bears to the Super Bowl or the NFC Championship. And Nick Foles is a Super Bowl MVP, but at the same time, I don't know that he's a guy to lead the Bears to the championship or the Super Bowl either. So for that reason, I think you still got to give Trubisky a shot. And I'm looking at
Yeah.
the Bears' schedule the next couple weeks. You're going up against the top 3 defense in the league in the Colts. You're going up against the Bucks 4 days later. So that's those two reasons alone is not going to help Nick Foles out. You have a setback week 10 days later against the Panthers. Then you're up against the Rams, Saints, Titans, Vikings, bye week, Packers. So, I mean, unless Nick Foles just absolutely balls these next 3 or 4 weeks, I think you still have to consider giving Trubisky a shot. I
Mm-hmm.
could even see it where the Bears lose this week against the Colts and then Nick Foles doesn't do spectacular against the Buccaneers. I could see them going back with Trubisky against the Panthers, against a team that the Bears should beat to get his feet back under him, get back on the right path, and then you play the
Yeah.
Rams, Saints, Titans after that. So I wouldn't
Not
get
not. Go ahead.
I wouldn't get rid of Trubisky. I wouldn't necessarily put him as a permanent backup or number two. Um, I would say you just kind of see how it plays out. If Nick Foles does well, you stick with him. If he struggles, put Trubisky back in. I mean, you're
Yeah.
3-0 right now, and you really don't know who your quarterback is. So you're not in a terrible position, but you also are in a position where you kind of need to figure that out before you get to the later half of the season.
Yeah, and two, there's not, from an offensive standpoint in Chicago, there's not really a lot of star power. Allen Robinson's definitely their leading receiver. Last week had a big game, 10 receptions. I believe he had a touchdown or two. Um,
Tariq
but
Cohen's out for
lose,
the year now
yeah,
too.
he's out for the year. David Montgomery was injured the week before. I know he played this past week, but he's still dealing with the injury. But not a lot of star power there. So it's hard to say because you look at all these other quarterbacks around the league. They got somebody that's always on Sports Center, always making the plays, always putting up the good stat lines, good fantasy points, and they just don't have that. I don't think.
Yeah, they definitely. I mean, they have Allen Robinson, who to me is a slept-on wide receiver. I think he's a lot better than a lot of people give him credit for, and that could be just because of where he's at in Chicago,
Mm-hmm.
and not having a great quarterback to give him amazing numbers. But I'm a big fan of A-Rob, and like you said, I mean that's about the only weapon they have, and it you can kind of see that they don't have any weapons in the play of the quarterback because, I mean, you look at Aaron Rodgers, like what Aaron Rodgers does with basically nobody is unreal. But Trubisky, Foles, they're not that kind of player, and they're
Right.
going to struggle with no weapons. But yeah, so we'll get it. shortly touch on it, but without giving too many predictions, how do you see this week panning out for the Bears and Nick Foles?
To be honest, I have them winning. Indianapolis has got the number one ranked defense in fantasy points, but at the same time, you look at their schedule; they haven't played anybody all too great. But yeah, I'm taking Chicago this week. I think Nick Foles starts, and I'm pretty sure he'll play the whole game. At least from my thoughts, I think he will. Rallied the team back last week against my Falcons. So yeah, I've got them picked this week to win. I think they do. I think it's a close one, and I think it can go either way depending on which Phillip Rivers decides to show up.
Mm-hmm.
But I had Jonathan Taylor on my sit-em list at running back for a reason because I think the Bears have a phenomenal defense. So yeah, I think Chicago's going to get the win this week. I think it's going to be kind of sloppy, but I do think they continue the streak to 4-0.
Yeah, I'm going with the Colts just because it's like you said, it kind of depends on which Phillip Rivers you're going to get. And it kind of goes, you're at the same thing with Chicago where Colts don't really have that many weapons either. You have T.Y. Hilton, you have a rookie in Jonathan Taylor, and that's about it. With Michael Pittman being out for the year, I think it's going to be a really, really good game. You're looking at 40, 50 points combined between the two teams. It's not going to be high scoring. It's going to be really good, methodical. Whoever wins the turnover battle is going to win the game football.
Yep.
And I'm excited to see it and see how it pans out. I think Nick Foles will play pretty well. I don't think you're going to get many turnovers from Nick Foles. That's what he's going to do. He's going to take care of the ball. I have the Colts winning just because that defense played really, really well last week, and
two touchdowns.
Yeah, I trust that Phillip Rivers can put them in a winning situation. But like I said, I think it's going to be a really close game, and it kind of comes down to it's either going to come down to who has the ball last or who wins the turnover battle in my eyes.
Yeah, I agree.
So we'll get into another game that's two potentially less caliber teams, but it can go either way as well, and that's the Arizona Cardinals versus the Carolina Panthers. I'm kind of torn on that one too. I don't know whether to buy into the hype of Arizona. They lost last week against Detroit, but Detroit's not a terrible team. I think they're
quarterback.
Yeah, really good quarterback. If he can stay healthy, I think he's one of those, or Detroit's one of those teams that you could consider potentially playoffs, just depending on how the dominoes fall. But yeah, so what do you think? Are the Cardinals overhyped? Should we be buying into Kyler Murray and Cliff Kingsbury, or should we give them a couple more weeks and kind of see?
I don't want to say that they're overhyped. They've got a lot of weapons. Kyler Murray definitely looks like one of the most shiftiest running backs out there when he's carrying the ball. He's putting up good numbers. They had a week 2 win against a terrible Washington football team, but week 1, statement win versus the 49ers. And then, like you said last week, losing, at Detroit. I don't know if that's something to completely look on. I do think they win this week, but I think one of the keys is, Kenyon Drake's getting 15, 20 touches a game, but he's not putting up any numbers. He's staying somewhere around the 40, 50 yards per game mark. I think he's got like 1 touchdown on the season. DeAndre Hopkins is going to put up numbers. I mean, he's a top 3, if not top 2 receiver in the league in terms of fantasy right now for a reason. He's going to get his touches, probably even going to get a touchdown. I do like the Cardinals, but as far as buying into the hype, I think they're going to be a good team. I think they're going to make the playoffs. I think they're going to compete with a lot of good teams going forward. But after last week, they do have a lot to prove. I will say that.
Yeah, I think it just kind of comes down to which Cardinals teams want to show up. I think there's going to be weeks where you're going to get 40 points out of them, and especially Kyler looks like he's finding his groove. But at the same time, he also turned the ball over 3 times last week. And when you do that, you're not going to win. But, I mean, he had a rushing touchdown. He threw for 2 touchdowns. So his touchdown to turnover margin is even. But, I mean, if you turn the ball over 3 times in a game, that's not going to get the job done. And I think if you want to be successful and you want to have a shot at the playoffs, then you're going to have to take care of the ball. And Kyler's only in his second season in the league. Cliff Kingsbury is his second season too. So I think they still have a lot of growing pains to get through. But I think when you look at their upcoming schedule, you have the Panthers this week. I expect them to win that game. Then you play the Jets, who should be an easy win for them next week. You play against the Cowboys, Seahawks, but then right after that you have a bye week to get back on track, and then you face the Dolphins coming out of the bye week. So
yeah,
there's a lot of potential for the Cardinals to finish good, 8-8, 10-6, somewhere in there.
yeah.
They have a rough division where they play the Seahawks twice, play the Cowboys twice. They don't play the Cowboys once. But nonetheless,
They play the Rams twice.
yeah. And if they, I think if they can find their groove quickly, then you're looking at a dangerous offense. I think they'll find themselves in a lot of high-scoring games. I don't think it's safe to say they're overhyped yet. I just think they still have a lot to figure out and kinks to smooth out before you can make a true assessment on them.
Yeah, and another thing touching on that is I think they'll prove a lot in this 4-game stretch after the Dolphins. They play the Bills, the Seahawks, the Patriots, and the Rams in a 4-game stretch. I think that'll prove a lot. I think if they can go 3-1, 2-2 in that stretch, I think that's going to be really good moving forward.
Yeah, because after that you have a Giants team who is still going to be without Saquon, and then you have an Eagles team that who knows what they're going to be, and then you're going to go up against a 49ers defense who that'll be the first time you've seen them in this format all season. You got to win over them in week 1 when their defense is at almost full strength.
No preseason still.
Yeah, exactly. So, you're going to get a completely different 49ers team after Christmas than you did in week 1. So, the potential's there, and I think even if they don't have the best season this year, I think they're going to build up a lot of momentum headed into next year because you're going to have D-Hop coming back. Kyler's going to be there entering year 3. Kenyon Drake probably will be back. Fitzgerald, who knows? But I think, this is a roster that's building towards the future. So if you can have a decent game from them now, then you're set up for next year.
Yeah.
So we'll stay in the NFC and get to another team that's kind of struggling right now, and that is the Philadelphia Eagles and Carson Wentz, who is not. It doesn't look pretty. Just being honest here, Carson Wentz has struggled all season long. He is essentially 0-3. You didn't deserve to get out of there with a tie against the Bengals. You did, but a lot of people say a tie is worse than a loss.
I agree.
So you look at it in that way, you're 0-3, and that's not good. Wentz is yet to throw over 275 yards. He has 6 interceptions on the year to only 3 touchdowns, and that is awful.
Yeah, and you look at their next 3-game stretch, we could see them going 0-6. You got the 49ers, Steelers, and the Ravens next 3 weeks. That's going to be tough. That's going to be really tough. I think it's do or die for the Eagles and Carson Wentz. I definitely could see him losing his starting job in this next 3 weeks, given if they do go 0-6.
To be honest with you, man, I don't see them winning a game. I think if they don't beat the 49ers this week, there's no shot they beat the Steelers. I'll clip that when it happens. And then the Ravens. Unless the Ravens just crap to bed again, then they're not getting out there with a win. I see their first win coming in week 7 against the Giants. And hey, honestly, you go 0-6, you may be looking at Jalen Hurts starting 1-2 in his career because he's going to play the Giants, the Cowboys, and then the Giants again. So, you're looking at the Philadelphia Eagles being 2-6, 2-7 around that middle of the year mark, and that's not good, obviously. But I would fully expect to see Jalen Hurts get some playing time soon, and get some valuable snaps at quarterback, especially if Carson Wentz continues to double interceptions compared to touchdowns.
Yeah, and Carson Wentz is struggling. That's no surprise, or not surprise, but it's no shock. That he has been struggling this week, given no offensive firepower really behind him. But let's look at their defense. Giving up 27 to probably the worst team in the league in Washington, 37 points to the Rams, and then last week tying with the Bengals. It's their defense is just doing as bad as their offense, if you ask me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you only have a handful of sacks on the year compared to what you realistically should be at, given
Mm-hmm.
who you've played. You know, you've played the Bengals, who have a terrible offensive line. You have the Rams, probably not going to get a lot of sacks in that one. But then when you played against the Washington football team, I mean, those are not two great teams. For who you
Mm-hmm.
have on your defense, you should have a fairly decent amount of uh, sacks. And you're looking at, I think, I'm going to find their sack leader is Brandon Graham with 3 on the season. So you're getting 1 sack per game from your arguably your number one defensive lineman, your number one defensive end. That's not going to get it done. So
Mm-hmm.
even with Carson Wentz struggling, if your defense is struggling too, then that just makes Wentz jobs harder.
Yeah, if you'd asked me on opening week, what going into week 4, what would I think the Eagles would be? I would have told you they'd have been 2-1. I think the Rams is a given loss, but as far as Washington and Cincinnati, those don't really make sense to me.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, it's hard to say. Well, what's going wrong? Um, Without looking at Carson Wentz, like
Yeah,
this goes back to the same thing with Jameis Winston and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last year. The Buccaneers defense didn't look good, but when you're turning the ball over 30 times in a season, 2 turnovers through the air per game, that's going to put a lot of strain on your defense because they're not getting the rest on the sideline like they need. They're not getting the good field position because there's a big difference in a punt and pinning them 40 yards back and throwing an interception.
yeah,
Um, so I mean, you look at that alone, like that's going to force the defense to struggle. So I mean, the root of all problems for the Eagles to me is Carson Wentz and lack of depth at the wide receiver position. I mean, their
yeah.
top two receivers are tight ends, and that's one reason why I had Zach Ertz in my starter for this week. But your top 2 receivers are tight ends, like that can't happen.
And they have been dealing with injuries on the offensive side of things this year. Miles Sanders I think missed week 1. No Alshon Jeffrey so far, who is traditionally a pretty decent receiver. He always competes, puts up good numbers, but yeah, now Dallas Goedert's out, so you're really just looking at Zach Ertz this week. I mean, Miles Sanders. 49ers are going to shut the running game down, I believe.
Yeah.
So it's just going to put a lot of stress on Zach Ertz, I think.
Yeah, a lot of focus is going to be on uh, forcing Carson Wentz to beat them. I think you have a
By throwing,
quarterback
yeah.
exactly. You have a quarterback who struggled the first 3 weeks of the season, so why not attack that, shut down the run game, and force Carson Wentz to beat you?
Yep.
I think that's what Kyle Shanahan's going to look at doing for the 49ers. So it'll be fun. But yeah, Eagles are going to have to get it turned around pretty soon. Um, but we'll see if they are able to figure that one out. But one team that seems to have it figured out, the Buffalo Bills. This goes just back, kind of like we were mentioning with the Arizona Cardinals. Are they for real? Are you buying into the hype? Because they almost blew it. They almost blew it against the Rams in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
You have a somewhat controversial PI, not as controversial as others, as such as the NFC Championship 2 years ago. But what do you think, man? Are you in on the Bills or are you waiting?
Yeah, I'm definitely in on the Bills. I'm in on Josh Allen, who I think has worked his name into the MVP race. Does he win? I don't think so. But he's second in the league right now in passing yards. He's a dang good rushing quarterback. Um, I'm buying into the hype, man. If their defense can keep it together, they almost blew it last week. Because putting up 35 points against the Rams, that's enough to win. You know, Giving up 28 to the Dolphins, is it more to say that their defense is, who I think is a top 5, top 10 defense in the league, but they haven't been showing it. Um, the next 3 weeks got the Raiders, Titans, and the Chiefs. That's going to be a tough stretch for them for sure. But yeah, I'm buying into the Bills hype right now. I think we could see them playing in the conference championship. if not for sure, the conference semifinal.
Yeah, I'm torn between, do I buy into Josh Allen or do I buy into the Bills as a whole? Obviously, Stephon Diggs was a major improvement to that offense
Mm-hmm.
in the offseason. You started out 3-0. You're outscoring your opponents by 5 points per game, somewhere in there. So you're not doing incredible, but at the same time, I mean, you gave up like 20 points to the Rams in the second half.
Yeah.
That game was out of hand. I kind of will say they had a little bit of Alabama effect in them, like Alabama had against Missouri. You're up by 20, 30 in the second half, and then you let them come back late. Unfortunately for the Bills, it got a little bit closer than it ever should have gotten. But yeah, I'm really impressed with Josh Allen. I was a big fan of Josh Allen coming out of Wyoming anyway. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but Carson Wentz, Sam Darnold, and Josh Allen were all in the same draft class.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, uh, Carson Wentz coming out of North Dakota State um, seems to be, I don't want to say a bust. I think it's too early for that, but he's definitely been, he was overhyped coming out of college compared to his performance now. Same thing with Sam Darnold, which I'll give him a little bit of credit. He's at the New York Jets. There's only so much you can do. But to me, Josh Allen's the best quarterback coming out of those three right there.
Yeah.
And I was very big on Josh Allen coming out of Wyoming. If I can find some kind of proof to say that, I will show you and I'll put it out here for everybody to see that. But
Was Jared Goff was in there too, wasn't he? If not the year before. They're all around the same 1-2
yeah,
years. I mean,
because you had Mahomes, Watson, Trubisky all in the same draft, and then I
yeah.
think after that it was those three guys. It was either after or before was those three.
Yeah.
And yeah, I can't remember where Goff landed or which draft class he was in. He may have been in here with these guys or the class before that. But yeah, I mean, I'm a big Josh Allen fan. I think he's set himself up for a lot of success in Buffalo. They just need to keep getting some key offensive players around him, get him a decent little running back. If you could get a top 10 running back in the league, take a little bit of pressure off him. Things would, it would look better. Devin Singletary's been balling. He's averaging 50 yards per game. Still hasn't found the end zone somehow. But you have Stephon Diggs, who's a good wideout. Isaiah McKenzie's a pretty decent wideout. You have Cole Beasley, who's always been Julian Edelman type, where he's going to be consistent. He's not going to drop the ball. He's going to do what you need him to do. But he's not a Stephon Diggs caliber wide receiver. They had Robert Foster. I don't think he's there anymore.
And John Brown, man, he was
Yeah.
he was a top. Well, I know he's injured right now. I think he comes back this week. But I know last year he was a top 20 receiver. Put up an average 12 points a game. I think he had 5 touchdowns on the year. 2 of those coming in one game. He's not a bad person to have on the outside either. So receiving wise, I agree. They've got a good lineup at receiver. I think they could use some help in the backfield because I definitely see Josh Allen being one of their primary rushers, especially in terms of touchdowns. But but going back to what you said to start the topic, I'm buying into the Bills.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that they're a playoff caliber team this year, and then dependent upon off-season acquisitions and who they can get to stay off of this roster, you're looking at if they don't make a deep run this year, next year they're setting themselves up nicely, just like the Cardinals are.
Yeah, I think if their defense, goes back to the traditional preseason Bills defense, that especially in terms of names, if they can get back on track to how their preseason hype was and live up to what everybody was saying about them, I think we could see them sitting in a conference championship.
Yeah, absolutely. It'd be very interesting to see Mahomes and Josh Allen go at it for the AFC Championship and a spot in the Super Bowl. It'd be exciting. I'd love to see that though.
Yeah.
Something I'm just kind of thinking on it right now is we need to, next time we do college, we need to discuss Trey Lance out of North Dakota State.
Okay.
Supposedly he's declaring for the draft and not going to play this spring when NDSU plays. I think NDSU plays like one game on Saturday and that's it. That's like their only game for this fall. So something to look into as we prepare for next season's draft. But while we stay on the topics of quarterbacks, we'll get into the man who has no MVP votes in his career. He said today he don't care about getting a
Unbelievable.
vote. He wants to win. And
I
that
love that.
is, oh yeah, same. Russell Wilson completely playing out of his mind this season. What have you seen from Russell, and what has you most impressed?
Well, for me, it's definitely the 14 pass touchdowns, and probably one of top three, top four toughest divisions in the league in terms of teams, and having to play those teams 2 times a year. It is early, and he does have a lot of offensive weapons. But I'm not going to take anything away from him, man. Russell's a phenomenal quarterback for sure, first ballot Hall of Famer. Uh, but to have no MVP votes in his recent years, it's kind of mind-boggling to me. They're definitely the hottest team in the league, and he's almost broke 1,000 yards passing. He's not leading the league, but he is in touchdowns, and that's how you win games, is putting up the most points. So he is definitely my MVP front runner as of now through 3 weeks. So I hope they continue going forward. Like me and you said earlier, I'm pretty sure the Seahawks are in mine and yours prediction to be in the Super Bowl. So
Yep. For sure, the NFC Championship. I mean, there's the Packers you could throw in the Super Bowl. The Seahawks you could throw in the Super Bowl. It just kind of depends on how the playoff path goes. But yeah, so it's like you said, it's mind-boggling that he does not have an MVP vote, because it's not like this is a abnormal season for Russell Wilson. This is a year in, year out consistency. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and he's slept on. He's underrated, and he doesn't seem to let that bother him at all. Like, you don't really see him out talking about how no one gives him a chance at MVP, or how no one's talking about how good that the Seahawks are performing or anything like that. He just plays. Like, he shows up on Sunday, he gets a win, he goes home. And like you said, he's got 14 touchdowns this season with only one interception. He's got a 77% completion percentage, and
number one in fantasy quarterback.
number one quarterback in fantasy. But he's already halfway to his totals for last year in touchdowns. He threw for 31 touchdowns in 2019 and already has 14 this season, which puts him on pace for, what would that be, like 80 touchdowns on the year, I think? 60 touchdowns?
Yeah, I don't know if he has a 2019 Patrick Mahomes season, once things play out. But, one thing I love about Russell Wilson is his mental state when it comes to playing the game of football.
Yep.
Because, you and I both know football is, to me, it's 70% a mental game. And, you've got your people like Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers and Drew Brees. They definitely have it figured out up top. But Russell Wilson, man, he's definitely the type of person that, from a mentality standpoint, he's the guy that you want, especially leading the team. So I don't know. I'd like to see him win the MVP this year, honestly.
Yeah, going back to the mental aspect of it, that's kind of why Trubisky spent a lot of time this offseason focusing so much on his mental aspect of everything, making sure his head was right. And you can also add Aaron Rodgers. He's saying that he's in the best position from a mind standpoint that he's ever been in, and his performance is showing that. So the mental aspect of it is definitely more important than the physical aspect of it, because, and Pat McAfee talks about this all the time, is the way a kicker's mind has to work when you go out there on the field is like, it's everything. Like, you're literally battling yourself more than you are anything. And if your head's not in it, or you're worrying about something, if you're worrying about anything other than taking the snap, faking the handoff, and making your reads, then it's going to show, and you're going to throw an interception, or you're going to miss a wide open wide receiver, or whatever. So, you say it's what'd you say, 70-30?
Yeah,
I would
I'm
say,
also 70-30.
I say it's more than that. I would say it's 80-20, 90-10. I think 70-30 is low, just because there's so much that goes into it mentally as far as preparation. Everyone always talks about Luke Kuechly, that you could go to the line of scrimmage. He's going to call your play. You're going to check, and he's going to call the exact thing you check to. So what are you going to do? Check again? Like
Yeah.
it don't work like that. So and that just goes back to preparation, which is all mental as well. You know, how well can you recognize this and know what to do and know what they're doing. And I think that's what makes Wilson and Breeze and Brady great. It's just like you said, the mental thing. It's all mental.
Yeah, and especially somebody like Russell, who is what 6 foot, 6'1", maybe at maximum. He's definitely received backlash on that, and you don't ever see it. You don't ever see it on the field. He always stays in the same mind frame, and from experience, I can tell you, uh, it's tough. It's any position of football is tough, but quarterback's got to be one of the toughest because you got to think about so much more than just throwing the ball. You know, you got to read the defense. You got to understand the plays. You got to understand your receivers. You got to make sure your linemen know where to block. You got to know, somebody comes out in a 3-5 or they come out in a 3-4, 4-3. You got to be able to understand that, and you got to understand it quick. And he's definitely one of the best at it. So, going forward, I think he does. I do see him win the MVP. He's definitely already showed it early that he's in terms of a mental standpoint, he's there. He's in the MVP mind frame. But more importantly, like you said a while ago, he doesn't care about that. He just wants to win a Super Bowl. And we very well could see the Seattle Seahawks running away with this one.
Yeah, I think so too. And you get these quarterbacks that don't care about the awards and all that, and they just want to win. I think that kind of comes with maturity
Mm-hmm.
and where you are in your career. Like as a player, you probably know if you're, we'll say Joe Burrow, for instance. He knows the Bengals have no shot at winning the Super Bowl this year. So, is he more worried about um, winning the Rookie of the Year than he is trying to make the playoffs or anything? That could be something to think about. And Russell Wilson's in that point in his career where that one pass on the 1 yard line is going to haunt him for the rest of his life, and the only thing that could even slightly make up for that is to win a Super Bowl ring before he retires.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that I think I respect that part of him. I think there's a lot of people, a lot of quarterbacks now that are ring chasing. Drew Brees is going after his second ring. Aaron Rodgers is going after a ring. Wilson's going after a ring. Big Ben's going after a ring. I feel like the league is mostly split between a lot of young quarterbacks that still have 10 years ahead of them, and then a lot of quarterbacks that you're going to see out of the league in the next, we'll say, 3 to 5 years. Brady.
Yeah.
Brady, as old as he is, he don't have that much longer. Drew Brees, this could be his last year. Um,
Philip Rivers.
yeah, Rivers has got a high school coaching job waiting on him up here in Alabama, or down here, depending on how you look at it. Um, Stafford, I think that kind of depends on his injuries, if he can stay healthy or not.
Yep.
And then
Derek
Russell,
Carr.
yep. So Russell Wilson's he's out there ring chasing, and he's only going to do it in Seattle, in my opinion. I think that's his best fit as well. So
Yeah.
hopefully he'll get an MVP and a Super Bowl ring this year. I would love to see it, and I would much rather them come in the same season than come different. You know.
Right. I agree.
So, but at the end of the day, like you said, he cares more about winning the Super Bowl than anything, and that's all you can ask for from your starting quarterback. But while we're on the topic of MVPs, besides Russell Wilson, if you want to touch on him a little bit, I'm sure you got some kind of notes for him. Besides Russell, who do you have as another MVP candidate?
Right now, of course, Patrick Mahomes is going to be in there. But right now, I'm going with Aaron Rodgers, man. You look at what he's working with offensively. Um, one of the toughest, if not toughest, division in the league. No turnovers, 9 touchdowns, and yeah, and he's like we said earlier, mental standpoint, he's there. I think he's chasing a ring. I don't think the MVP matters at all to him. Just like I don't think it matters to Patrick Mahomes. But I think it's safe to say Mahomes and Rodgers are in the race as well with Wilson. But one thing I do want to say is I have two dark horse MVPs, Alvin Kamara and Josh Allen. In terms of stats and doing what they've done so far in the season, Alvin Kamara, man, top 5 receiving right now. He's having a heck of a year.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. I've got Mahomes, I've got Rodgers, I've got Wilson, I've got Kamara, and Josh Allen. And I mean, we've touched on all five of these players all show, so I'm not going to spend too much time talking about
Mm-hmm.
uh, stats. But to be through week 3, headed into week 4, I see no reason why these players don't put up amazing numbers again this week to continue their MVP conversation. The Seattle plays Miami, so that's going to boost Russell Wilson. You have the only person I could see somewhat struggling would be Kamara against the Detroit Lions.
Yeah,
Um,
given that Michael comes back.
exactly. Yeah. Then you have Rodgers against Green Bay, or sorry, Rodgers against Atlanta. So you know he's going to put up a lot of stats, just the same
Mm-hmm.
way he did against the Saints defense. Then you have the Bills against the Raiders, and even though that's a game that if the Raiders show up, the Bills are on the road playing in Las Vegas. Raiders are gonna have a little bit of momentum just because of that. Um, but yeah, I mean Josh Allen's still gonna put up numbers this week, so I could definitely see any of those guys um, winning the MVP. To me, right now, is too close to say a clear-cut favorite. But as the season goes on, those 5 people will get down to 4 and 3, and then by the end of the season, I'm sure it'll be between 1 or 2 guys like it was last year.
Yeah.
So if there's nobody else you want to add or touch on for the MVPs, then we can get into our predictions for Week 4 and round this thing out. Still with me?
Oh yeah, I'm here.
Okay. All right. So we'll start with. I'm gonna have to change the scene really quick. Oh yeah, there we are. Okay. Week 4 prediction starting tomorrow night with the Denver Broncos and the New York Jets, 2 of the worst teams in the league right now. After watching the debate last night, we saw a tweet that said never complain about Thursday Night Football again, and I can promise you I will not. So who are you taking tomorrow night in the worst team through Week 4 bowl?
The game's in New York, but I like the Broncos behind veteran running back Melvin Gordon. I think he has a big game tomorrow. I think he has a touchdown or two, couple receptions. Big fantasy night for Melvin Gordon. I'm betting on. But yeah, I like Denver tomorrow. I wouldn't be surprised if they won by 2 or 3 scores. Uh, but this is one of those games that I think comes down to the turnover ratio. You don't know how the quarterback is going to perform for either team. Sam Darnold, phenomenal passer, but no weapons. No Le'Veon Bell. Defense has been struggling. Not a top 5 defense like last year. So yeah, I'm rolling with the Broncos this week. Yeah. Yeah, and my episode 1 tight end favorite was Noah Fant. He's been a solid top 5, top 6 tight end in terms of fantasy points. 2 touchdowns on the season. I look to see him getting a lot of touches tomorrow. Somewhere from 5 to 8 catches, if not even more than that. But like I said, yeah, I'm rolling on the heels of Melvin Gordon tomorrow.
Okay, I'm fixed. I had a little production issue there where I was muted and could not unmute. Matthew heard what I said. But I'm going with the Broncos as well. Kenny Hamler is going to come into a big role with Courtland Sutton out. He's riding the tails of Melvin Gordon. I am as well. Even with Philip Lindsay out, I still think the Broncos are going to take the win in this game. And now that I'm unmuted, we're going to go on to the Colts and the Bears. We touched on a little bit earlier. I believe you said you had the Bears winning that one.
Yep.
Yep. And like I said earlier, I got the Colts. Could go either way, but I'm riding with the Colts defense. So we'll get into Joe Burrow versus Gardner Minshew. Minshew Mania, is it back? You think you got them over the Bengals, or what are you thinking?
Is Minshew Mania back? No, I think I don't agree. I think I'm going to go with Joe Burrow getting his first win this week. Like we said, I'm counting a tie as a loss. It's easily, proven Joe Burrow is a winner, and I think he's hungry for his first win. So, yeah, I'm giving it Cincinnati this week.
Yeah, likewise. I think Burrow picks up his first win. I think Jacksonville is, they're still. Minshew put up a show the first couple of weeks, but at the end of the day, they're still getting Trevor Lawrence in the number one pick. So Joe Burrow is going to find his first career NFL dub on Sunday against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And that's a home game, too. That's in Cincinnati, so that'll help out a little bit. But staying with Ohio, we're going to go with Cleveland versus Dallas in Dallas. I have the Cowboys winning it just because of their performance in the second half against the Falcons. Could have beat the Seahawks. They didn't. But, the Seahawks are a Super Bowl contender, and the Cowboys played really well. Trayvon Diggs had a immaculate play against DK Metcalf to save a score, and I got the Cowboys winning. I will say I've put some money down on the Browns just because I have a little bit of faith in them, but at the end of the day, I've got the Cowboys coming away with that one.
Yeah, this is one of those I think could honestly go either way. You never know which Cleveland team you're going to get in terms of, their offensive weapons they have in terms of like names, and stats, etc. They have the people to win ball games. That's no surprise. But I'm like you. I like the Cowboys at home this week. Dak Prescott's been pretty good this year. First in the league passing yards wise, and of course you got a top 3, top 4 back in Zeke. And then, of course, probably the best route runner in the league, Amari Cooper. Yeah, I like Dallas this week. I'm not saying it's going to be a big win. It could be. And I could also see Cleveland winning. But if I had to choose one like we did, I'm going with Dallas.
Yeah, they, if Cleveland has a good amount of options on offense, and like I think we touched on a little bit last week, it's once they all find their groove in that offense, they're going to be deadly. They're going to be high scoring. You see Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb have already put up some pretty good numbers. Their defense picked off Dwayne Haskins twice last week, 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, four total turnovers.
Yeah, so their defense is playing really well, and I think if they can continue forcing turnovers against Dallas, then they'll come out with a victory. It just kind of comes down to which Browns team will show up. Will we get the 2020 Browns, or will we get the past 15 years of Browns? But we'll get into another 12 o'clock game with the New Orleans Saints at the Detroit Lions. I'm going with New Orleans. I think Breeze has had enough. I think Kamara is going to go off again. I think if they played anyone other than the Packers last week, they probably win that game. So I don't think they played terrible last week. It came down to one Taysom Hill turnover. And at the end of the day, they got the L. But they still played rather well, so I'm going with New Orleans over Detroit.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going with Saints as well. This is with or without Michael Thomas. The Saints are always going to be the Saints. They're always going to compete, always going to be one of the best ball clubs in the league. Detroit, pretty weak on the defensive side of things and offensive, but I'm rolling with the Saints, probably by about 20 points, I expect. But, yeah, I like New Orleans as well.
Yeah, that's it's going to be an interesting game nonetheless, no matter who plays or doesn't play for New Orleans. But speaking of who's going to play and who doesn't play, Steelers and Titans. That's Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Week 7, Week 8, whenever it is. I feel like that's going to be another good game. I feel like the Steelers are kind of slept on. Titans, last week I couldn't really tell if it was the Titans struggling or the Vikings were just kind of finding their groove, because the Vikings played the Green Bay in week 1, so you play a top team in the league, unable to get that win. So when you look at them last week against Tennessee, they looked really good. So I think Tennessee's still trying to find their way. I think the Steelers have a really, really good defense that will not shut down Derrick Henry, but I don't think Derrick Henry is going to have a big day.
Okay.
Um, I think in order for Tennessee to win, you're going to have to ride Derrick Henry and keep the ball away from the Steelers' offense, and I don't think they can do that. I don't think the Steelers' defense is going to allow that, so for that reason, I'm riding the Steelers to victory.
Yeah, I agree. Pittsburgh is slept on, probably one of the best defensive teams in the league. They've proven themselves so far. But one thing I was thinking about, I think Tennessee's trying to find their name in the passing game because Derrick Henry can touch the ball 20, 30 times, and you can ride him all game. And I think that's what they're going to do this week, given that Pittsburgh's a definitely stronger team in the secondary. They've definitely thrown the ball more so than I would have thought. I mean, you were talking about this last Sunday. I think this week they turn it over to Derrick Henry and let him run the ball a lot more than he has been. I know he scored twice last week, but still not getting his 20, 24, 26 touches a game like he was last year. But I like Tennessee in this one.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see. I think that's one of the few games we disagree on. I think last week we only had like 2 or 3 games where we didn't see eye to eye with the outcome. I think this week, I think I have 2 or 3 games marked as well that we have difference of opinions on. But one game that we for sure have the same opinion on is the Seahawks Dolphins. Instead of talking about who's going to win that game, we're going to talk about the spread. Seattle is 6.5 point spread to win the game. What do you think? Do they cover? Do the Dolphins somehow keep them under that? What do you think?
It all depends on Fitz magic. I've seen Ryan Fitzpatrick, opening game, was it last year or the year before when they opened with the Saints? He put up like 40-plus points fantasy. Are you going to get that Ryan Fitzpatrick, or are you going to get the 4 turnovers a game Ryan Fitzpatrick? You don't know. But
Yeah.
I do see Seattle winning this one by easily 6 points. I probably would even go to say 15, 16 points. But I do think they cover easily, and I like Seattle in this one. I think Russell keeps his consistency going in terms of touchdown passes and QBR efficiency. I like Seattle in this one.
Yeah, I think Seattle definitely covers the 6.5 point spread. I'm on FanDuel right now. Miami has a 4% chance to win the game. I think that's being generous. I don't think they have any chance to win the game. I think you could see Russell Wilson getting hurt, and I still think Seattle wins the game.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, we'll get into the Chargers at Tampa Bay. Buccaneers starting to find their groove. Bruce Arians saying that they don't need Gronk; they have wide receivers to catch the ball, so Gronk can block. That's what he's there for, according to Gronk himself. Brady finding his way in the Bruce Arians offense. I'm gonna go with Tampa Bay. I think Justin Herbert has a better outing than he did last week, where he probably should have been picked off 2 or 3 times more than he was. So I don't think Herbert's got enough in him to beat Tampa Bay, but I do think we see a better performance out of him.
Yeah, I agree. No Chris Godwin this week. I don't even know how long he's out. I know he is out this week for sure. Still got Mike Evans, traditionally top 5, top 10 receiver. But, this all goes back to, like I was telling you last week, I'm buying into the Buccaneers hype. Tom Brady could have chose any team to go to sign with. I'm pretty sure anybody would have taken him outside of, like your Kansas City, Baltimore, Seattle, those teams, New Orleans. But he went to Tampa Bay, who definitely has an offensive roster to win games, win a lot of them, and defensive team that's not too bad. But I like Tampa Bay in this one. I agree with you in terms of Justin Herbert. I think he has a better game than last week, but I do see Tampa Bay escaping with a victory.
Yeah, Tampa Bay is in my eyes, I think they'll make the semifinal for the NFC. I see them as a top 4 team in the league. I don't see anybody beating the Packers or the Seahawks. So
Yeah.
I think they get beat by one of those teams in the playoffs. So we'll get on down to the Ravens at Washington. I think we both agree that one's going to be handedly or one-handedly by the Ravens.
Easily.
Yeah. So
I'm pretty sure I would not even doubt if we see 2 if not for sure one defensive touchdown.
Hmm.
I'm going to say we'll see multiple turnovers in this game.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely like Baltimore in this one.
Yeah, I feel bad for Washington because I feel like the Ravens are just going to be completely pissed off and out for
Yeah.
blood. So I feel bad for Dwayne Haskins. But we'll get into Arizona and Carolina, another even matchup. You have Carolina, who's finding their way without arguably the best running back in the league, and
Mm-hmm.
Kyler Murray and Cliff Kingsbury, who seem to be on the rise in Arizona with who could be the number one wide receiver in the league. So for that, they're on the rise. They have a really good offense who have only been together for 3 weeks or 3 complete games. So with a struggling Carolina team, I'm gonna go with the Cardinals in that. I think Kyler has his first 300-yard game in the air of the season. I think D Hop puts over 100 and maybe 2 touchdowns. So I'm gonna go with Arizona in that one.
Yeah, and like you say, no Christian McCaffrey. Mike Davis, in terms of a fantasy point, has stepped right in and proved himself to be worthy of a tier 2, tier 3 running back. But I'm like you. I think Arizona has a big game in total yards, especially offensively. I'd like to see Kenyon Drake get involved more, especially find the end zone a few more times, because I do have him in a pretty important league. But yeah, I'm riding on Arizona this week, especially after last week losing to a team who me and you said they would not lose to. I think they get it done this week. Kind of, relaxed days last week. Didn't really look like the traditional Cardinals teams we see in the previous 2 weeks, but I do like them this week in a close one.
Yeah, I like the way you kind of put that. The Cardinals kind of seemed to laid back last week.
Yeah,
Took the Lions lightly, I guess, and took the L
as did
because
we.
of it. Yeah, we definitely did do that. Which is why we talked about earlier in the podcast, was the Cardinals overhyped, or was it we
Yeah.
just put too much faith in them? So we'll get down to the Vikings, who had a really good performance last week with Justin Jefferson finding the end zone and his first 100-yard game. And they are going up against Deshaun Watson and the Houston Texans, who I believe the Texans worked out 2 quarterbacks today, if I'm not mistaken.
hmm
Could that be a sign of things to come in Houston? What do you think?
I'm still a big Deshaun Watson fan. I don't necessarily understand that. I did see that and read about that, and I understand it. But they don't have DeAndre Hopkins no more. He's not throwing the ball to him 10 times a game. So he's having to find different targets, learn new roles. New running back there, David Johnson. But I do like Houston this week. I think this is this is a statement game for Deshaun Watson, given that he does play and start. Minnesota definitely has been struggling, especially defensively. Got a good enough offensive team to win the game, but being in Houston, I do like Houston Texans this week against the Vikings.
Yeah, I mean the Texans are 0-3, but in my eyes they're the best 0-3 team in football.
Yeah,
They lose to the Chiefs by 14, the defending Super Bowl champions. The Ravens by 17, who you know the number one defense in the league at that point. And then they lose to the Steelers last week. They had the roughest 3 week stretch in football to start the season that I've seen in a while, at least. Deshaun Watson's got 792 yards passing with 4 touchdowns. His QBR is not that great, but I mean you got to look at who they played. I think, like you said, it's going to be a statement game for them. They play Vikings this week, Jaguars, and then the Titans. So it's not going to get any easier. I think this game right here defines their season for them, whether they start out 2-4 or they start out 0-6, kind of like we were talking about earlier with the Eagles. Um,
yeah.
so definitely a statement game down in Houston, and I have the Texans taking that one as well. Um, so we'll leave from Houston and go down to Los Angeles, where the Rams are taking on the Giants. I think we both agree with that one. The Rams' offense is going to explode. The Giants have no firepower, and the Rams take that one by, I'll say, 14.
Yeah, I agree. I would say 14, 15 points. I think it's a big game in the air for Jared Goff. Like we said, had a couple guys for the Rams in our stardoms this week. I definitely see them winning, definitely by throwing the ball. Um, yeah, like you said, this is not really one that I think many people would think the Giants win unless it's just a horrible sloppy game from the Rams. I definitely like them in this one by a couple scores.
Yeah, don't see that one being close, but we're going to finish out this with a couple games we do see being close, and that is Kansas City at New England and Las Vegas against Buffalo. We'll start with Kansas City and New England. I don't see
Is
that
it
one
is it in
be.
New England or is it in Kansas City?
It's in Kansas City. Um,
Okay.
I don't see that one being a blowout. I think Cam and Julian Edelman and Bill Belichick are going to be in that game. I could
Gotcha.
see it being another Kansas City versus Ravens game. The Patriots aren't bad. They're not a top team in the AFC in my opinion, but they're still a very good football team. For that reason, Kansas City's going to get the win, but I don't think it's going to be easy for them by no means.
I agree. We could see this one going either way, depending on, I think, which Kansas City team shows up. Especially after last week, I think Kansas City does have a big game this week. And one person that I think does have a big game outside of Patrick Mahomes, of course, is Clyde Edwards-Elaire. 20 touches last week. I like to see that, carry on into this week because, being a rookie coming into the defending Super Bowl champs, it's probably not easy living up to that hype, but he's definitely done so. And I think they get it done this week on the ground.
Yeah, I mean he's had a good season to finish off. He had a good end of his career down there in Baton Rouge, um, where you know we saw LSU as one-hit wonders. But that's neither here nor there. We're talking about NFL, and
Yeah.
yeah, Kansas City due for a big game this week, and expect them to come out with a win against New England. We'll go from Kansas City to Las Vegas, where the Josh Allen hype train continues. The next stop is SoFi Stadium, or is that the Chargers?
I think that's in Los Angeles.
What's Allegiant Stadium is
Yeah, that's it.
the
That's it.
Raiders. Okay, so their second home game of the year. I mentioned earlier they may have a couple. What would you say? Some mojo behind
Yeah.
being at home. But I still think Josh Allen's too good right now. The Bills are too good right now as a whole. Derek Carr, you never know what Derek Carr you're going to get.
Hmm.
Waller's going to ball. Jacobs going to ball. I'm looking for Ruggs to have a big game eventually, especially to help my fantasy team out. But I do have Buffalo taking that one.
Yeah, I'm gonna stay on the Josh Allen the train right now all the way to Sin City as well. I like the Bills in this one, in a close one, and like we said, this could go either way, depending on which Raiders team wants to show up at home. But I'm staying on the Bills train right now, and I like Buffalo in a close one.
What about the San Fran game? You got Philadelphia versus San Francisco. You think Eagles find their way, or you gonna ride with 49ers?
Like I said earlier, I think it's do or die, especially with the stretch they have coming up. But I think George Kittle's back this week, which is huge for San Francisco. Given, and I believe Raheem Mostert's back this week after missing a game last week. So I'm definitely taking the 49ers, probably by a couple scores. I see the Philadelphia turn the ball over and that continuing as they still try to find their groove. But I think San Francisco wins this one pretty soundly.
Yeah, I also heard where Jimmy G's day to day. He's working out, trying to get back going. He may play this week, may not. I wouldn't expect them to rush him back, but he's still an option to play. And yeah, I don't see Carson Wentz. I don't see him finding his groove. I think the 49ers do take this one no matter who plays or who doesn't on that sideline. So we'll finish off the podcast with a prediction for the Falcons and the Packers. Um, we both know that's going to be a lot of yards, a lot of offense.
Hmm.
But I'm going to take Green Bay in that one. Atlanta's got to find a way to turn this thing around. They should be 2-1 right now. They're finding themselves at 0-3. Um, you could make the case for them being 1-3 after this week. I don't think it happens. I think they drop to
Hmm.
0-4. Aaron Rodgers is just too good, and especially if Devontae Adams plays, then I don't see any reason that the Falcons win this game on Monday night.
You hear me?
Yeah,
Okay, sorry, you cut out on me. But yeah, pretty much I'm the same as you. I think if Atlanta were to win this week against Red Hot Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, that could turn things around for him going forward. Julio missed last week. I believe he's back this week. But I'm with you. It's in Green Bay. They've pretty much been unstoppable on the offensive side of the ball. I'm rolling with Green Bay, sad as it is to say. I see my Falcons losing this week, dropping to 0-4.
Yeah, something a lot of people probably don't know. I don't even know if you know this. I may have mentioned it the other day when we were talking about it in the group meet. I really don't necessarily have a favorite NFL team. Um, I like the Falcons, but they're also 2 hours away, and that's really the main reason why. I'm a fan of the Saints because I like Drew Brees. Growing up, I was a Packers fan because of Brett Favre.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm the same
so
way.
I don't really have a favorite team in the NFL. If I did, I would pick an NFC team, like one of the three I just named. The only NFL apparel I actually have are I have a Saints and a Falcons pullover long sleeve kind of thing. So we're looking at two of my favorite three teams in the NFC and in the NFL going head to head. So I'm excited. I'm excited for this game. Um, we can tell you're a big time Falcons fan by your picture the last 2 weeks. Hopefully one day we can get something, something other than this. But we'll see. You got anything else before we close this out? We're sitting at an
Well,
hour and 20 minutes.
I was going to touch up on, I'm kind of the same as you. I consider myself a Falcons fan, and they are my favorite team. But
Yeah.
Green Bay is definitely my second favorite team. I'm a big Aaron Rodgers guy.
Hmm.
When I first started watching NFL, I was a Brett Favre guy. So, yeah, these are my two.
You there? Give it a second. Say, Matt, can you hear me, brother? Oh, he's out of the call. That's not good. Maybe he'll come back. Maybe he won't. If he doesn't, I'm going to go ahead and close this out. I'm going to send him a text really quick. Letting him know he lagged out. There he is.
Sorry, what was the
You
last
good?
thing you heard?
Basically saying that you grew up on Brett Favre too.
Yeah, well, after that, I was just saying I really look forward to, my two favorite teams for sure in the league, Green Bay and Atlanta. I'd like
Mhm.
to see Atlanta turn things around. But, either way, it's going to be a great Monday night football game, high scoring, two favorite teams, the only game on Monday. So, of course, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and I think that's something that there's a reason neither one of us have a true favorite NFL team, and I think that's mostly because Alabama doesn't have a pro sports team at all.
Yeah,
So we kind of just have to pick and choose who we get behind, and most of the time we're going to look at who our favorite player is in deciding that. Um,
yeah.
because there's two. Nashville's close, Atlanta's close, New Orleans ain't that far. It's further, but so you can't really
Tennessee.
go. Yeah, can't go by location. You kind of just have to go by who you're feeling at that point in time. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah,
That's one
so
that's one of the reasons why I do enjoy NFL though.
yeah,
Just because, there's not that much pressure because when I watch Alabama, I get really nervous.
yep.
Whereas NFL, I'm just like, you know what? I love football. I enjoy it. Let's watch it. But it does hurt seeing the Falcons lose the way they lose.
Yeah,
But
for
anyways,
for sure. Yeah, watching the I don't know if you watched the Braves game earlier, but they 0-0 through 13 innings or 12 and a half technically. Ended up winning that game. They had like a couple bases loaded scenarios that they got out of. So that
I
kind of
think it's
goes like,
just the state of Georgia.
yeah, something about Atlanta teams cannot uh, close things out essentially. But yeah, so that's gonna wrap up episode 3, technically episode 2 of the Point After Podcast NFL edition. It's been fun. This one was a little bit longer, and like I said at the beginning of the video, we actually put out about 20 minute video on fantasy only yesterday. If you want to go check that out to get some fantasy insider headed into Sunday. If you have any questions regarding who you should start, who you shouldn't, betting advice on any of these games, why we picked. I think we did a pretty good job of covering why we picked the teams we did. But if you want us to go more in depth, we can. You can reach out to us on Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, um, YouTube, the comment section. I think you may can email us as well. Yeah, Matthew's gonna work on the Facebook page. We'll have that up and go in tonight or tomorrow. All the links are in the description below. Matthew's DMs are open. My DMs are open, so you can contact us anytime. We're always down to talk football. And if you want to talk to one or the other, we'll make sure that that person gets in contact with you. Anything else before we close it out?
Yeah. I've enjoyed it so far. I hope what we say and some stats that we put out help you guys, especially in your fantasy leagues. I love football, and I love what we're doing right now. I love the thing we got going, and I appreciate whoever's listening, whoever does listen, and whoever listens in the future. So, yeah, that's all I gotta say, man. Let's go.
Yeah, for the first couple videos have been unreal. I think we're averaging 50 views per podcast, which is way more than I expected, to say the least. And we, like Matthew said, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for if you are listening, we appreciate it. Let us know that you are listening as well. We want to be able to connect with you guys if we don't know you personally, or if we do, just let us know you're supporting. We really appreciate it, and we wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for you guys. And especially if you take anything we say into consideration when making bets or your lineup, and it works out for you. Let us know that as well, and maybe we'll work something out as some kind of gift for trusting us in the future.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so we got apparel coming soon. Apparel designs should drop hopefully this weekend, and we'll start that next week maybe. Um, if you're interested in college football, we have a college football podcast we put out on Tuesday, so you can check that out as well. Anything you want to see from us, just put it in the comments, let us know, and we'll do whatever we can to cover it for you guys. With that, we're gonna get out of here and go enjoy some time with our wives before we get back on the football ground tomorrow morning. Appreciate everybody tuning in, and we will see you next week.